When you look closely into another human being's eyes, you see their strength, fragility, their vulnerability staring back at you, and it stirs the oceans of your soul. It's as though you can see that person's entire life played out before you. What has this man or woman witnessed in their life? Have they watched beautiful sunrises and sunsets? Have they seen their children and their families mature before them? Has the life they have led been the life they envisioned?
Hi, I'm Oli.
And I'm Dia.
And we're with the Santa Barbara Middle School Team Press here with
Dr. Alan Crandall.
How has blindness touched your life?
Well, I'm an ophthalmologist, of course, which means that my whole life is dedicated to curing and preventing blindness. So it is my life. And when you see something like the cures that we can do in areas where blindness is at such an endemic rate and affects the entire population. For example, in South Sudan, 20% of the population is entirely blind, and that population needs to be cared with. And that usually takes the youngest member of the family out of the equation. So the 20% that are blind really affects 40% of the population. So it turns out that to break poverty in the developing world, one of the first things you really have to do is to cure blindness.
What do you think your life would have been like if you did not take this path?
That's a good question. It's always hard. I would think that I would be in some form of service, but I'm not sure what it would exactly entail. My basic background is in chemistry and mathematics, so I probably would have done some research, basic science research.
Why are you considered the unsung hero?
I'm not sure unsung is true. I think we get a lot of credit for what we do, maybe more than we deserve. We're doing something that we love, and we always get more out of each of these endeavors than seems that we give, because there's such joy in helping these folks. So, as I say, I think we get more out of it than they do. So, we're not really unsung.
How has John Dow inspired you?
John Dow, we first saw his story when he won the film festival at the Sundance Film Festival in Salt Lake City, which is where I live. And at one of the evening events, somebody asked John, just like today, how can they do to help? And he said, well, one of the things that we need is eye doctors. And believe it or not, my sister volunteered myself and Jeff Tabin to go back, and that was when we made the promise to him that we would eventually go back to help him. He's inspired me because he's willing. He's goes back to his country, believes in his country, believes in his fellow man, and is willing to give for humanity, for humanity's sake, and he's willing to do things that it's very rare in this world to see somebody that will go to that degree to help other folks.
Mentally, what was the toughest thing you saw in South Sudan?
South Sudan is one of the poorest states in the world. And in it, you see diseases that are no longer anywhere else in the world. We went to a clinic where we saw active polio, which you don't ever see in the United States. Active leprosy, as you saw in the film. Active tuberculosis, schistosomiasis, river blindness, diseases that are rampant like malaria. Almost 100% of the population has malaria. So it's hard to imagine how impoverished these people are, and yet by restoring their sight, how much human dignity they were able to gather and gain back.
And what was the most inspiring?
I think the most inspiring happened three weeks ago when we got the letter from one of the actual officials from the South Sudanese government that said the Murle had said to their youth that if anyone attacks DUK they will not be welcomed back to the Murle tribe, which means that we were successful, and that it's, although small, there's only 3 tribes, and next year it'll be 6 tribes, and then the next year it'll be 12 tribes. So that, in fact, it's a small beginning for peace, but it actually is working.
Being in these conditions in South Sudan must have been intense and emotional. How did you keep going at tough times like the day the healed man was killed?
Well, we of course heard about that because we had left about a week before that, and there were still members of our team that were there that had to be evacuated. It's something that we are fairly used to. We do a lot of these events. It is, like I say, I think one of the things is we get a lot out of each day, and so it's just. It's what you do. You just get used to it. It isn't, there are a lot of people that couldn't do this, but they can all still be part of the team. They can donate to our cause, or they can help us in many different ways. So that you do have to have. It's a little bit hard. You have to have a lot of energy, and you have to really want to do it because it is hard. There's no question. Operating in 105 degrees with bats flying around is not your common everyday occurrence.
The smiles on the faces of the post-operation patients were priceless. Can you share with us the fondest memory you have of taking the patches off someone's healed eyes?
Well, it was really actually, and every time I see that film, it reminds me that the grandmother whose daughter had died and whose son-in-law had died, and she had raised essentially totally blind, had never seen her granddaughter, and to see the joy in her and the change in her life is really one of the fondest. But we see that all the time. We see people come in carried in either Nepal or Ethiopia, any of the places we go, and many times they're bent over because the term for a blind person in the third world is a mouth with no hand, because they're useless to the community. They're useless, and they become very, very depressed, and they become scrunched, and they become thin, and they're ready to die. They think they're going to die, and then when you cure them, and they stand up and their shoulders go back, this is what is really inspiring.
What is in the near future for you, South Sudan, in curing blindness?
We've already scheduled January 5th of next year, 14th. We'll take essentially the same team back, and this year we are going to expand the region. We will again treat Dinka, Nuer, and Murle, and then we're going to expand it to 3 more areas. The Sudanese government had a conference, and actually every member of each of the individual states has now asked that we visit them. Wow. Which means that the word is getting out that one, we will cure them, and the word is getting out too that means they have to be peaceful.
I think everyone has a different view on the prayer flags. What do you think the prayer flags symbolize here in Telluride Mountain Film Festival?
Well, one of our main clinics is actually in Nepal, in Kathmandu, and we spend time in India. We spend time in Kathmandu, all of Nepal, and in Bhutan and other parts of the region. And to us, the prayer flags really symbolize the hope and also the philosophy that every little bit that you can do will help humanity. So it's a symbol of hope.
You mentioned that you have many clinics, and you said that there's a lot of more diseases than just blindness. Did you ever feel that moment when you felt like you needed to help more than just curing blindness?
we do partner with other teams, but like I say, we work with the United Nations in the Millennium Villages. You can't really, you have to do what you're good at. And one thing we can do is we can cure the blind person so that the young person can go back to school. And that also allows the people to come in and build wells, and it helps with the malaria, anti-malaria stuff. So it is all teamwork, and you do what you're good at, and by doing what you're good at, you help others.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you.